No, just excited to get back to work. The kids lifted this morning, and I think energy was good, right, Carter? Energy was good. My message to those guys has been the same, that we have a lot of room to get better, and we have to keep doing it because the games are going to keep getting more challenging. We got a team that can play with hopefully anybody that we play on the schedule, but we have to execute well and play fast. And got to have good weeks of practice to make that happen. So excited to get back to work.
Both quarterbacks went back in the game despite both having AC joint sprains in the game. Is their status? Are they both available this week, or is it what's their status going into Kansas?
That's kind of TBD, and I'm not trying to give you the runaround. I got to see how they operate this week. It's great that we have Cam ready to go again too. So we'll figure that out as the week goes on.
Yeah, what's kind of Cam's status? Because he enters the season as a starting quarterback. We know he got hurt. Is he back to where he needs to be 100%? Is he the backup, or how would you categorize Cam's role right now?
We'll see. I know he can play, and he can play well. So this week's got to help determine that based on how everybody looks in practice and who's ready to go and who isn't, and we'll make just like a lot of positions, we'll play the guy that gives us the best chance to win.
So after the last two seasons, UCF started out 3-0 and then had brutal 5-game losing streaks. How do you avoid one loss turning into 2 or 3 or 4 and then going into that big streak like that?
Sometimes when those things happen, it's because you're just losing close games and you're fighting, and that's football. You win some, you lose some. I think other times, when that happens to teams, guys can kind of cash it in a little bit. I don't expect this team to do that. That doesn't mean we'll win the next one. Doesn't mean we won't. This league is going to be a battle every week, but I feel great about the players we have on this team. We're going to keep fighting, and we might win 3 in a row, we might lose 3 in a row, we might win 1, lose 1. No matter what, coach is going to keep coming to work and trying to give us our chance the next week, and the players got to do the same thing.
Coach, you mentioned a lot of room for growth. Where stands out the most, and you can see the biggest area for improvement?
It's just execution. We didn't execute very well Saturday, and a lot of that falls on me. We had a lot of mitigating circumstances in that game that made it a challenge. Certainly thought we had our chances. Offensively, we just didn't keep drives going and give ourselves opportunity to hit big plays often enough. Didn't protect well enough. Made some bad decisions. And our plan going in was to try to keep the defense off the field, and it completely went the other way on us, and the defense played well for a long stretch of that game. We just left them on the field too long and gave them opportunities that we didn't have. But all that comes down to a little better execution on offense, and we keep some drives going and give ourselves chances to call more plays that eventually hit. It's the detail, and usually when you're not real experienced, the detail can be lacking, so we got to fast track that.
I wanted to follow up on the drive where the offense suffered multiple delayed games, penalties. Do you feel like lack of poise was a factor in that?
Yeah, I don't know. We felt like we got the play calls in early enough. We just got to get in and out of huddles better. That starts in practice, and we got to be more clear and concise in the huddle to make sure everybody has it. And I also thought we got worn out. We got in a position where we had to go super fast, which we're capable of doing, and guys are going to have to play 8, 10, 12 plays in a row. And I think sometimes fatigue gets us, and then we're not as fast into the huddle. We're not as fast breaking the huddle. So we have to be better in those situations than we were. And again, I'm not pointing the finger at anyone. That's just something we all need to work on.
Kansas State quarterbacks had success running the ball. What do you have to do differently this week with Jaden Daniels coming down?
Well, he's really good. Watching him on tape, he can throw at an elite level. He can run at an elite level. I think they do a great job scheme-wise with him. So they're probably going to get theirs to some degree, and we got to try to limit that. And we definitely need to be better on offense. And it's hard to take everything away from a player of that caliber, so we got to do the best we can to contain it.
Coach, with Coach Hope now having a game under his belt on the staff? What has it been like working with him, and how has he kind of integrated into the coaching staff thus far?
Yeah, Coach Hope and Coach Clark were really close, and I know it affected him too. And part of the reason he wants to be here is to kind of honor the work that Sean was doing. It takes you a while to get up to speed on scheme and vocabulary and terminology, and it's probably a good question for Carter. He's in the room with him. I think as the year goes on, he'll be able to help us more and more. But it's kind of across the board. So there's technique things and just fundamental things that we need to execute at a higher level. And we didn't pick up twists very well last week. We're going to work the heck out of that. So there's some things he can help us with, and I think as time goes along, he'll be able to help us more and more.
After the game Saturday, you said you thought your receivers got too tired too fast. After watching the film, where do you feel like what facets did that kind of show up in over the course of 4 quarters?
Oh, kind of what he was talking about. I think the extended drives got to us, and part of that is we need to probably keep bringing some young guys along, give them more opportunities to play, and keep guys fresher toward the end of the game. And we got some young guys with a lot of talent, so we need them to step up a little, but we also got to give them that opportunity.
Coach, what sort of similarities do you see between Avery Johnson and Jalen Daniels? Is there anything from last week that you're trying to carry over to this week against another Russian quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, the defense is going to be our defense, and at times Saturday we smothered what they were doing. At other times it leaked, and when you give a good athlete space, they're going to take advantage of it. So we were good at times. We need to be good more often this week if we're going to contain him.
Scott, you're 4 games in. This is about the time where players announce opt-outs, or if they want to opt out, they'll ask to opt out and redshirt, things like that. Have you had any players that have come to you and asked that? Or?
I have not yet. I love the culture of this team and the attitude of this team. Those are decisions that need to be made. There's all sorts of talk about eventually having a 5-for-5 rule, which I think makes a lot of sense. If guys have 5 years to play 5, just so you don't have these things happening, and especially with limited roster numbers, if you have 1 or 2, it can really blow up a position, and that would take the decision out of this. That being said, we're going to be smart with some guys too if they're not playing a major role or trying to save their year for them. But I don't think we have too many of those.
I meant to ask the transfer portal. They announced they're going to go to 1 window now for the transfer portal. Have you had a chance to think about the impact of how that's going to help you?
Yeah, I mean, more than anything, it just helps my sanity. It was maddening to think you spent all the time building a team and you coach them through spring ball and then they aren't on your team. What a waste of effort. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think coaches all around the country were pushing for it. The one that I wish would get some attention is our salary cap number, quote unquote salary cap. I hope it's a salary cap. It's not right now, but I hope they get it there. The break for that is in July. So when you think about it, our season really goes from end of transfer portal to end of season, and you'd like to think that the salary cap pertains to the team that year, but since the break for the finances is in July, you end up spending half your year's money on one team and half your year's money on the next team, and that can be manipulated. I hope that's the next step, that there's a clean break, and if we can get to a cap, that it starts and ends at the end of the transfer portal.
Is that final line what constitutes what holding is? Because it seems like there's a lack of consistency. I'm not trying to ask you to criticize officiating, but I know there were some calls in that game that looked like they could have been called.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much about that other than I had a really good talk with the head of officials yesterday, and I really appreciate what he had to say to me, and we'll keep working through that. Simply put, if some of those calls that could have been made weren't holding, then I probably need to teach our offense to do things a little bit different, and that's what I'm curious about more than anything.
When Taven went out and Shakuri went in, what went into the decision to go with Shakuri instead of Cam in that situation?
It was just, I think, more reps in practice during the week. We went all week with Cam getting a few reps, but mostly with Tay and Jakari as Cam was still getting back to 100% and shaking the rust off. And, I just felt more comfortable playing the guys that had taken the reps during the week.
How important is it to establish the run earlier in the game and keep the offense on the field?
Yeah, I think that was our, if you point to anything in the game Saturday, we didn't earn first downs early in the game. And when you earn first downs, the tide starts to go with you. We knew we had some chances to create some runs in the game, and we did once we started controlling the ball a little bit and giving ourselves more chances. Thought our offensive line run blocked pretty well Saturday, and we created some big plays. We just didn't have enough opportunities to do that in the first half, especially the first quarter. So we got to make the plays and execute on things that will move the chain so we get more chances to snap the ball and have opportunity to make big plays.
Twice in the first 4 weeks, your defense has seen an opponent that uses multiple quarterbacks in the backfield at one time. Is that something you thought about incorporating with your group?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have talent at the quarterback spot, so we've talked about those things. Right now, I'm worried about who's healthy and who's not.
Speaking of Coach, Dylan Wade, Jaden Williams, Isaiah out for this last game. What's the status on them thus far? Could they be ready for the next one?
Yeah, we're waiting to kind of hear. I haven't met with the trainers yet. I feel really good about those guys and their status for this week, but I'm kind of waiting to get an injury report.
Scott, when we go back to the quarterback position, if depending on if Taven and Jakari are not ready to go, how do you divide up maybe the first team reps? Is it, with Cam and Davi and those guys? I mean, would you have to kind of move it around a little bit more, or will one guy get a majority of that, or is that just to be determined later on?
I have a pretty good idea tonight who's got a good chance to go and who isn't, and I think after tonight, tonight we install everything, and then really the practices are on Tuesday, Wednesday. So by tomorrow morning, we got to make that determination, and I don't know the answer yet.
Coach, after those 2 sacks that Taven Jackson took, it pushed him back, almost thought to be out of field goal range, but then Noah comes in and nails the 53-yarder. What would you say, career long term, what would you say about what he's added to the team?
Yeah, it's always comfort when you have a kicker that you believe in, and Pete's done a great job with special teams, and it's good to have a guy that can hit those kind of kicks. We got to be better and make sure that we don't take negative plays when we get in their side of the field, and we did that on a couple drives with a fumble and some penalties and a couple sacks. Credit to them again, but we made that field goal harder than we needed to, but it's good to have somebody that can hit it.
What's the scouting report on Kansas? What do they do well? What's the biggest challenge for your team?
I had watched them some going into this game, and I thought defensively they were playing really well. Cincinnati got them on a few things, but DK's done a really good job with them. They're multiple and they run and hit well. And offensively, I think they're creative and they put their quarterback in position to make plays. I think they did a good job in the transfer portal, and they have some guys that can really play. And I think they're a better team than they were last year. So we got our hands full, but it's good to be at home.